equipment.
Well, Mary, how do you feel about disco?
That's something that I think everyone has fond memories with the globe ball and the
Right.
sparkly lights or whatever.
Well, actually, you know, there was a little village over in our sister county, Jackson, called Disco.
That's right. And actually, it was quite a thriving little neighborhood at one time.
It was, and so I thought maybe we'd take a trip east.
Going east, we're leaving the county once again.
So you make sure you got your papers.
I got my papers.
2 forms of identification in
I
case
have
they
a
stop
whole
us.
bag worth.
If they stop us at the border, we gotta be ready. You never know.
That's right. So let's get loaded up, and we're going to go on an adventure.
And to our fan base, the dog is not coming with us today.
Oh, but she had a good trip last time.
Yeah. But she gets bored really easily.
Yeah,
so,
we're no fun in the car.
No. So, let's go disco.
There we go.
Scramble the ass on this So Mary, here we are, and we are at the Jackson County line.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We should maybe move off the highway.
Well, I am off the highway. Gee whiz, Mary.
This is a busy place.
I didn't realize, yeah. But here we are at the Jackson County line, and we're crossing into our sister county. And you know, boundaries and county lines and stuff like that, that's all ephemeral, really. And they can be moved, they can be shifted. I mean, you never know. Maybe someday Trempealeau County will invade Jackson County and take back Taylor or something.
Yeah, take them over.
You bet. So we're going to proceed on down the road, and we are going to go through Taylor.
Now here is something we got to pay attention to this time of the year, Nancy.
You betcha.
Look at that.
Farm machinery, and they have a right to be out there, don't they?
Well, you know, we all got to eat.
That's right.
I'm kind of fond of the old chow hound wagon.
Yeah, really.
And here we go. There's our Taylor.
Happy Easter, Taylor says. Today is Good Friday, and Mary's going to run right home and start planting potatoes.
That's right. Start cooking dinner.
Yep. We are at the big turnoff where we go into Taylor.
Yep.
The first town that we come into once we go across the border of Jackson County.
I'm going to try to make this.
On County P, as in, I don't know, what? Partridge? Pig?
Partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah, pear tree. Right.
Now that is one big tractor.
Yeah.
Of disking.
They got perfect weather for it today, I would imagine. Although it could be a little moister.
Well, in the bottom, but you know, we got a lot of drier soils in our area too.
Yeah.
And we're kind of light on moisture.
So now we're coming into Taylor. And Taylor is here, really, in the size that it is because of the railroad. And I imagine they had a depot at one time. I'm sure they did. Oh, and look over here to our right, Mary.
Look at that.
Yeah, they're out there collecting syrup, aren't they, from those maples?
And we could use a sugar snow.
Yep.
But I'm not so sure we're going to get it. It's supposed to be 70 degrees this weekend.
So now we're coming into the village of Taylor, and according to the sign, in the last census, they have a population of 481.
Whoa. flashy signs.
Yeah. Now, in all my research, I could not find out why it's named Taylor. It's probably named after, who knows, Cornelius Taylor or something. Couldn't find that out.
Maybe there was a tailor shop here.
There could have been a tailor shop here. I'm sure being a railroad town at one time, it probably had a couple of hotels. So we're going to take a left and we're going to go down Main Street. I've got a couple of pictures of the Main Street.
And when did the railway come through Taylor?
I think that was probably in the 1870s, 1880s.
Yeah, and you can tell by the architecture on some of the houses or some of the building fronts that it's a little bit older town.
Let's see. And we're in the town of Albion, which is confusing because there's also a town of Albion in Trempealeau County. So that must have been a trendy name at the time.
And Nancy says this was the old bank building.
I believe it was. Well, Taylor had their own school. And they built, around the turn of the century, they built a really nifty school. And it is still up there. Yeah, they've got some kind of weaponry there, don't they? So I think Taylor would be prepared to resist should Trempealeau County invade. They're all set up.
Nice little park in town.
Yeah. Taylor used to have its own school, and this is a picture of the school that was built in a fair, and it's still here.
And years ago we used it as like a meeting hall for farmer meetings.
Yeah, it's a municipal building.
And that's good to see these buildings repurposed.
Yeah, they added on to it, but they were using it as, you know, a school and a grade school. And then up at the end of the road here, I think that was their high school. And probably
Yes.
some people, younger people anyway, don't remember that Taylor did have its own high school for many years. And then eventually it was consolidated with Blair, so now it's Blair Taylor. But in its day, you could see that the older school here, that was quite the building. And I think it was built around 1909, 1910.
Perfect.
And then right down the block from it is the big Lutheran church. And just a couple years ago, they had a big, it was like a centennial.
That's quite a building, isn't it?
It is.
It's a beautiful little town.
It is. Nice, quiet little town.
You know, I'm always amazed at how the communities do such a good job with their churches.
They
You know?
take care of them, don't they?
Yes.
So now we are headed east out of Taylor. And we're headed over towards Disco. And what prompted me to go look at Disco was I found a nice photo of Disco in 1902 when it was quite the thriving little community. So I thought, well, let's go over and see what there is there today. So we're leaving Taylor.
On County Road P as in Paul.
Okay. Here we go east. This is Jackson County.
And there's the fairgrounds, home of Taylor Old Fashioned Days, right? Oh,
Yes.
look at that. A little bit of fertilizer going out.
Agriculture.
There you go. Beautiful rye field. Okay.
All right, now we're coming up to County X. X as in, what? Xanadu?
Xylophone. No.
Xylophone.
Xylophone's
yes,
an
yes.
X, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And there's the sign up here. I don't know if it points us to disco or not. We'll have to look at it and see. What does it say? It says disco. Yes, it does. All right.
6 miles.
6 miles to disco. Okay. You know, Mary, we were talking about suggesting ways for you to do your filming, and I had suggested the lawn chair tied to the top of the car, and you sitting up there, and that you didn't get really excited about that.
No, I thought, it would mess up my hair.
Yeah. Well, then I thought a Pope mobile, with the big bubble on it, would be great. But I've looked around and there just aren't a lot of used Pope mobiles around.
Did you check on like eBay and Craigslist?
Yeah, I could not find a used Pope mobile.
Oh, there you go. The one thing about Jackson County that just floors me is that there are spots of it where it's so flat.
Yeah.
Compared to Trempealeau County.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And only part of Jackson County is in the driftless area. Correct?
Right, because when you get over the river, when you get over Black River and go east, Jackson County becomes a whole new world, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Flat and sandy and trees and part of the lumbering cut over.
And gravel soils.
Very different.
With water in the craziest places.
And not a real great farming land.
No.
When you get way over there in the eastern part.
No. I think that's why there's so much county and state forest.
Right.
Because it was good at growing trees.
Yeah, it was. Not so great for farming. Oh boy, they really got a lot of, they're really doing a lot of surf here. Here we go. These are all maples that they're tapping, right?
Yes.
There are people that tap birch, and there are people that box elder.
The maples, that's why they like the sugar maples. Get that part?
Yeah.
Lots and lots of sugar. But you got to cook and cook and cook, and I wonder if this year, because we haven't had the snow, I wonder if the sap will be thin.
Well, they said it's what, a 36-to-1 ratio?
Yeah. And it's really something to watch people cooking sap.
Yeah.
You got to boil it down and boil it down to get that beautiful, beautiful, I love maple syrup, fresh maple syrup.
So, Mary, we were talking about ways to get you out of the car filming better. Well, I thought the other night that maybe we could strap you onto the front bumper across the front grill.
Yeah, but then I'm going to get bugs in my teeth, because I'm kind of a smiley.
Well, I was going to say, you just have to keep your mouth shut.
I don't think that's OSHA approved, Nancy.
We'd get some come-alongs and just strap you down there.
There you go. There we go. Or a big truck. Maybe that would work better.
Yeah, that could be. I just don't have that, so.
Well, you could just sit on the hood. We
like
could
an ornament.
run a couple of bungees through the through the open windows a crack. It wouldn't be too terribly bad.
No, especially in warm weather.
I think I'm going to start driving, and Nancy can start doing more camera work.
There you go.
Yeah, I think it'd be safer for me that way.
She's like my new ideas.
She's going to tie me up to the front of the car. I don't know how safe that is.
Well, we're getting pretty close to disco. And I was finding trouble finding too much information about it. And then last night I kind of hit the mother load because my neighbor Bob Howard had a history of Jackson County, and they had quite a bit of information in there about disco. So I did find out some things. And to start at the beginning, Jackson County was formed about the same time as Trempealeau County in the early 1850s. And it said the first person to settle in the disco area was a man by the name of Charles Harmer, and that was in 1854. And he had come up here and he bought 200 acres, mainly for the marsh hay. That was what he wanted, was that marsh hay. And he brought his family from Fond du Lac in a for real covered wagon, and It was pulled by oxen with an ox team. So I think it was probably a pretty slow journey.
From Fond du Lac?
Fond du Lac, yeah. And when they got there to his 200 acres, what they did was they took the wagon box off the running gear, of the wagon, and they lived in that until they were able to build a cabin. But that was the very first settler. And it didn't sound like there was a whole lot going on here as far as building a village until 1895. And that was when the first store was built in Disco. And that was by a fellow by the name of Oliver O'Hearn. He had the first store. Now, preceding that store being built, there had been a schoolhouse, but it was down the road a couple of miles. They said it was 2 miles north. But then in 1872, they decided that they needed a school in Disco. And so they built this school in Disco. And then at some point, the people of Disco decided that they wanted to make it a state-graded school. And I looked that up, and what that meant was a school that had more than 2 rooms. And it had children organized by grades. So they put this other schoolhouse, and they added it on to the one that was there. And they had this really unique-looking state-graded school. It was two schoolhouses put together with an entrance in between, and that was the Disco School. Well, we're coming to the stop sign here, and this would be downtown Disco.
Boy, there's not a whole lot left.
No? Let's see. This is County C as in cat. And we're going to go through there. It looks like we could stop right over here like they have a little park.
Yes. Yep.
There's even a sign that says
Park.
Now I think where we're standing now in this park, I remember there used to be, I'm pretty sure it was a store, but that was probably, back in the 1970s. It was just an old building. I remember coming through here, and there was what was left of the store. But for a while, Disco was really getting to be a real happening place. And originally it was called Marengo. It had a post office and they called it Marengo. But they changed the name because when they applied for that name in their post office, they found out that name had already been taken. And so a lady said that she had come from Illinois and there had been a town there called Disco. So that's what they named it after. They named it after a town in Illinois and not the dance, okay? So it really got going around the turn of the century because they had the store and the school, pretty big school. They put the schools together in 1902.
Face me.
And then the post office was held in the Harmer House for quite a while. And then they changed the post office and put it in the store. And they also had a rural route here for many years. Disco had its own rural mail route. In 1895, besides the store, they got a blacksmith shop. So they had their first blacksmith shop, and that was also in 1895. And that was run by a man by the name of, his name was Andrew Jackson. He was not the president, the Indian fighter or anything, but his name was Andrew Jackson. And he had the blacksmith shop. And apparently that blacksmith shop, first it was on one side of the road and then it was on the other, but it was there for quite a while. Well, then in 1899, they started a creamery here in Disco, and that was started by a man by the name of Len Dietrich. And he had tried starting a creamery kind of north here, closer to Black River. And that wasn't working out, and so he moved it over here, and he moved it in sections. He had the farmers help him kind of take it apart, and they hauled it over here to Disco, and then they reassembled it. People were so handy back then. Don't you just love it? You know, nothing went to waste. However, in 1909, the creamery burned. pretty sad, you know, lots of things burned back then. But they rebuilt it, and they continued to process milk, and they made cheese. And I actually read on the internet there were some comments by people that said that one guy said after he came back from World War II, he had a job here at the creamery and everything. And it was a small creamery, but they were making cheese. So they had a blacksmith shop, they had the big school, they had a store with the post office, they had the creamery. And at about the same time, they built this big community hall. And that was going to be a meeting place. They had a fraternal organization called the Woodmen, and they met there. And then the community club kind of took it over. And so they also had this big hall where everybody met. But guess what happened? In 1949, it burned. No, that just happened a lot back then. And I believe that, let's see, was there something else that burned over here? Oh, maybe not. No, that was, yeah, the hall burned. And, well, then things started changing. They still had their school, and that was called Joint 9 School. And even after they discontinued the school district, the bell was taken down, and that now resides in Black River Falls at the County Historical Museum. At least it was when they put in this information on the internet. Their school had, well, as you can see by the picture, very unique. There were 2 schools put together, and that was a graded school, so they must have had plenty of pupils. The blacksmith shop was taken over by a man by the name of Hank Weiss, or Wiss, W-Y-S-S. And he was there for quite a while, and the store, unfortunately, also burned, but it was rebuilt, and it was run for quite a while by a couple by the name of Ray and Ann Zindrick. So that was this really thriving little community. It had a lot of things going on here. But then slowly, like as I read this, I thought, you know, this is a perfect example of how things have changed in our rural landscape here in this part of Wisconsin. And where first these little communities were really important because there would be a store, a post office, a creamery, a school, because people didn't travel as fast or as far as they do now. When you were traveling by horseback or horse and wagon, 8 miles was a long trip, and people didn't want to make those long trips. So that's why the stores and the little schools and businesses were so important. But as things progressed, the farms got bigger, the farm families got smaller, and people became much more mobile. And so now, as you see, Disco is basically this beautiful little community park. They even have the shelter here. But look at the picture and think back in your mind of when Disco was a really probably busy little town. I remember, oh gosh, it was back in the early 1970s that a lady told me that she was coming over to Disco to pick blueberries. So that must have been growing around here in the woods or out in the fields.
And that shop, that was part of Disco too.
Yeah.
There's an old building in that household, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. And Jerry and Shirley Wagner's, one of their kids bought the old store, and they actually started it up again.
Oh, they did?
For a very short amount of time.
Yeah, I kind of remember it being there. It was right over here, I think.
Right, well, right on the corner.
Yeah, the corner store.
Then they kind of turned it into like a homeschool center.
Oh, really?
And then I think it just got too expensive for them to heat.
Yeah. Well, it was an old building.
Oh, yeah. And it needed probably $100,000 worth of work.
Probably. And if they were having kids there or whatever, they probably had all kinds of state strictures that they had to go by.
of nice little wetlands.
Yeah, this is a beautiful little park, isn't it? So people, if you want to get in your car and come over here and visit Disco, like Mary says, bring a picnic basket. You can have a lovely little picnic here.
Place for the kids to jump around.
Yeah, beautiful little area.
Oh, you can even grill out.
There you go. And I wonder if that little merry-go-round thing over here.
Doesn't look very safe.
No, but I wonder if that's left over from the schools.
Oh, it may be.
Because they used to have those. Oh, they were great. Remember those?
Yes, yes.
You could really get going on those. Oh gosh, kids used to get sick and throw up, but they were fun. Well, Mary, let's go back in the car and then let's go down, see a little bit and see if we can find out if the creamery is still there or some building attached to it perhaps at one time.
Okay.
Well, I would imagine.
Oh.
And you never know, after people watch this program, they might have a whole, I don't know, huge amount of traffic coming to Disco.
Well, it's a beautiful place to have a picnic.
It is.
I mean, wow.
And
Look at
maybe,
this.
you know, there's people watching this show that have some memories of Disco. Maybe they had come over here. Maybe they had friends or relatives that lived in the area. Maybe they had come here to pick blueberries. Now here on our left, and we're going to take a left on County C, and I'm pretty sure that this is part of the old creamery because the old pictures show it being a block building. And it wasn't a big creamery by any means, it was small. It's kind of fun to think that maybe this was part of the old creamery and remember what it must have been like with the farmers or the cream haulers bringing in those cream cans and bringing them in here, and they made cheese. And I'm sure it wasn't an elaborate process at all. And actually, lately we have seen a trend back towards smaller cheese making plants making artisanal cheeses, and there being a great demand and being pretty special. So here we are, and so we are north of Disco, right?
Yep, we're north of Disco.
North of Disco.
A lot of oak in this area.
Yeah, there is.
You know, oaks seem to do pretty good in that sandy soil, doesn't it?
They're tough. Oaks are tough. So up here, around the corner, there is a little cemetery. I thought we'd stop and look at that, Mary, just briefly.
It's been a while since we've been cemetery bombing.
Boy, you know, and our fan base, they seem to think that we spend a lot of time in cemeteries.
But that's a lot, you know, that's a lot of cool history, you know, to delve into.
It is, because that shows it's part of a community. I believe it's right up here.
Yep, you can see the cemetery trees. What do they call those? Arborvitae?
I think so. Yeah, those are big ones. You know, deer love those, but these are apparently big enough that the deer haven't been able to.
Maybe the deer are pruning them just at the right height.
Yeah, it could be. Well, we can even get off the road here, I guess. So now we're at the little cemetery here. It's French Creek Cemetery. So that must get confusing because there's a French Creek back in Trempealeau County, and there's also cemeteries there. Now this one, it says, was established in 1866. And try as I could not find out any information about this cemetery, that if it had ever been attached to a school or a church, or who really owns it or maintains it now. But there's a sign here saying that you can buy burial lots here. One lot for $200. That's a pretty good deal these days.
And it includes 4 sites.
Yeah. Now, I could not find out why this is called French Creek either. There was just no information. So maybe there were some French people here, or maybe there was somebody called French. We don't know. But let's just go in just for a minute and look around a little bit.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
There we go.
Technical difficulties. Maybe it was so early in settlement, you know?
Well, it said this looks like a fairly old burial. This was Sarah, wife of Mr. Ryder, and she died in 1868. So that's an old one.
I wonder what's with these little stones.
Now, this memorial here is to the wife, Elizabeth, the wife of William Caves, C-A-V-E-S. She died 1880, and this Mrs. Caves is the one that came up with the name for Disco, because she had come from Illinois, and there'd been a village there called Disco.
She was what, 43?
43, yeah. Don't fall over.
All these little stones.
All the little stones, yeah, they don't say. Here's a bigger one here that marks Henry Elwood, and he was 20 years old. And on the other side we have Orville, the son of the Reliers. He died age 2 months in 1865.
Switch spots.
And the other side here is Jane. She was the wife of H.V.A. Relier, and she died in 1880. And apparently Henry V. Relier, who died in 1876, he has a star here from the GAR, Grand Army of the Republic. That means he was in the Civil War. So he was a Civil War veteran.
So this is unique, and I wonder if these individuals' 4 stones are monumental to this one.
Probably.
Because there's that Jane R., right?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they probably were buried here, and then at some point they got this newer stone, because this apparently is not from the 1880s. It would be a lot more weathered if it was. Son. Here's another Relier, if I'm saying that correct. Child that died 1882, son of Adam and Jeanette.
2 years, 9 days.
Yeah. These old graveyards are always kind of depressing. So many children died. Here is another star that shows that Adam was in the Civil War. And then back
He
here.
must have died because it's 1915.
Well, but he was in the Civil War according to that marker.
Okay.
But here's a family that you
Oh,
probably
in the
know.
Civil War.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Civil War. Yeah, not World War I. Civil War.
And that's Steve Kling's family there.
There's the Kling family. And here we have a Korean War veteran. He was in the Marine Corps. Richard Relier, and he died in 1986.
I think it may be Realia. Realia?
I don't know how they say it. Realia? Yeah. So we'll just kind of take a little look at some of the other names here. Heschley and Schmidt, Schmidtke. Let's see. Richard W. Chapin, it looks like, another Civil War veteran. He was in the 48th Wisconsin Infantry. See some stones here for the Harmer family, Harmer, and according to my notes, they were the original settlers of the Disco area.
Well, it's kind of interesting that we're finding them here.
Yeah.
Did they have a church?
I couldn't find that they had a church here. I mean, they might have had a congregation that met in the schoolhouse or the hall, but I didn't find anything about a physical church. Here's Emery Harmer. He was in World War II. And back here are the Nortmans. And we have a Vietnam veteran, Ronald Leo Nortman, passed away in 2013.
Ole E. Olsen.
Ole Olsen, born in Norway, died in Wisconsin. I guess that sums up his life, huh?
We sure have found a lot of Olsens
Yep.
in our travels.
How nice. You don't often see a cow etched into a tombstone. I think that's nice. Here's kind of an interesting tombstone. I've seen a few of these like this. It's like a tree trunk. And this was Ellsworth, son of J.H. and M.R. Sharp. And he'd been born 1894 and died in 1897. It's the little guy.
So do you think this was a replacement stone?
Could be.
Because that's pretty ornate.
Yeah, it's pretty fancy. We have another Korean War veteran, Robert Lee, passed away in 1992. Just one more here. This guy was his name was George Vincent. He died 1866 and he had been in the Civil War. So you don't know if he died of some effects from the war. So, this is a pretty interesting cemetery, and there's really quite a few Civil War veterans buried here.
So that's an indicator this is an old
cemetery. This is an old cemetery.
Most likely pre-church.
I don't know if they ever had a church. I just could not find anything out in any of the history books, whether they had or not. said not selling it. So I'll get a. Okay. Well, I think we've got pretty much covered this little French Creek Cemetery. And I think what's interesting here, Mary, beside that they had a lot of Civil War veterans, is that it's really a lot of different names here. It isn't just Norwegians or just Germans, but there were quite a few people here with different sounding names. So this apparently was the community cemetery. So what did you think of Disco?
You know, Nancy, I've been driving through Disco for many, many years. And, you know, I remember the store.
Yeah.
I remember a couple of versions of the store as it was changing use. Yeah, and it's a nice little place that's got some really, really cool history. And it was a blast to get to go down there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I hope the day comes where we could go and picnic there.
It had a little park. It had everything you need.
Everything you need, protection from the rain. There was a building with a cover and a picnic table and a little grill thing. So yeah, excellent.
And I think, you know, thinking about it, I think it was kind of representative of a lot of the little villages and crossroads in this county and other counties around here.
Yeah, you don't have to drive very far to find a place like Aduna or Disco.
Yeah.
Or all the other little places. Russell, all the places that used to be.
Yeah, and I think that they served their purpose, their time, you know, and it's time, and eventually that time was over. But that's just a natural progression.
Yep, but now everybody goes to the big cities.
Yeah, yeah. To the big box stores.
The big box stores that don't give back to the local communities.
No.
So shop local.
So I hope you enjoyed our little road trip today, and we went over to Jackson County and to Disco, and we hope you'll come with us on the History Files again. And we want to thank all of our viewers, and we sure enjoy having you ride along with us.
Have a great day. Come with us next time.
Yeah.
Bite those leaves. Naughty leaves. Get 'em, Zip. Get 'em. Where are the birds? Where are the birds? So adorable. Beating up that leaf. Get it. Get it.